Welcome back to Warcraft Rewrite. We have an exciting episode for you today. It is What If Neltharion was never whispered to by the old gods? I'm joined today by my co-host Anglai. Anglai, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
That's excellent. Now, tell me very quickly, what is your experience with Cataclysm?
Cataclysm, I played it when it first came out, and I just did quests. I didn't do any of the dungeon, PvP, or anything like that. It was just quests, and I was running around. Probably wasn't following it in the correct order, but it does.
Well, to be fair, when I was younger, I kind of played Cataclysm. I more watched it over the shoulders of my oldest brother, who had a more understanding of how video games work. Because I was more concerned about, dolls than I really was World of Warcraft. But I watched it over the shoulder, and I was immediately enthralled by a giant dragon swooping down and attacking people, because that was my experience. I just saw a giant dragon coming from the sky, and I was like, I want to know more about this giant dragon. Why is he right? Why is he full of lava? Why is he full of just anger? Why does he say his anger is so deep? What is going on? So I want to know more about it. And so today, now that I'm older and have a better understanding of who and what Neltharion did, we have a great episode to start off on.
Absolutely. So the main reason why Deathwing went insane is due to the old gods. The void insects that the Void Lords sent to infest Azeroth, the planet, to turn her into a Void Titan. So the old gods whispered to him to weaken the defenses of the planet so that the old gods could reign again. And that's basically what Cataclysm was about. But let's go a little bit further back when the dragon aspects were first created. And Neltharion was whispered to rather quickly when given his new power to be the Earth Warder.
Right.
I feel like his insanity just started right during the construction of the Dragon Isles, a separate piece of land that the dragon aspects could go back for a home base and grow their dragon flights in peace away from the natural world.
Right. And the thing with Deathwing is he definitely had a chip on his shoulder. He was like, we have been blessed by the Titans. We are invincible. And the other aspects are like, no, this is a gift. We can't abuse it. And he's like, what? Not abuse the power given to us? What are you talking about? It's power.
You can abuse this.
So immediately, in the book, Dawn of the Aspects, it was very much they started off as whelplings, right? And then, Galagron, a massive undead dragon, was threatening the Isles. So the dragon aspects, who weren't aspects at the time, came together to figure out what to do, and they were blessed by Tyr. And so, but Neltharion was always the hot-headed fighter of the group. So he always had a chip on his shoulder. So of course he was like, oh, I'm going to be the best of the best. So the old god sensed that ego and whispered to him. But what if they never sensed an ego? What happens if Neltharion never had one?
Well, I feel like because he's in charge of the earth and the Void Lords still want to break out, they'll still be whispering to him. So it's not, will he hear the whispers? It'll be, how can he control them? And I feel like if we take it in that angle, it'll be a lot more of an interesting subject. So let's say he hears the whispers, he can control it and learn how to not fall victim to them.
Okay.
And I feel like he would still be doing a little bit of what he does behind the scenes that we see in Dragonflight, which is he still has his laboratories and hidden agendas, not really as much hidden as they would be now, but he would still want to find a way to protect the planet. It was his job, given by the Guardians, to safeguard the planet in case of a problem. And he sees the Void Lords as a problem, so he wants to build up a military, the Drakthir, and weapons, probably even another form of the Dragon Soul, but more holy and cleansed and not void messed with.
Right.
That makes
It
sense.
does. He is trying, maybe he leans on one of the aspects to more heavily than he has before. Because some of the Alexstrasza leaned on Ysera pretty heavily and even called her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if, let's say, Neltharion leaned on Norsdamu for support and said, hey, I'm hearing these whispers. I need help. And Norsdamu goes, oh, really? You're hearing whispers? I just saw my own future.
I'm gonna go crazy. Hey, I've seen your future too. Says you're gonna go crazy too. Let's fix that together, brother. And they're each other's therapists.
Exactly. They kind of lean on each other for support, and that kind of helps the whispering to subside. And they are more inclined to help each other than before. Because I feel like in the original lore, Neltharion never he never leaned on the others for support. He saw himself as more superior than them because he was the Earth Warder and he had a more connection to Azeroth. And Azeroth herself is a sleeping titan. So he's like, well, I'm more powerful than you will ever be because I'm the Earth Warder.
I'm more special. I'm in charge of the actual planet. You are just in charge of an emerald dream and life and the time ways and magic. I'm special, okay? I'm better.
Well, actually, what happens if, well, my gosh, I think I just understood Neltharion more to that joke than I ever did before. Maybe he's always seen himself as less superior than the other dragons. I mean, we got the mother of all life, the Emerald Dream, and we got Norsdamu, who can literally see the past, present, and future and manipulate them. Not that he does, but he can. And then, it's kind of like when you're getting awards, and it's like, most valuable team player is Norsdamu. Everybody, round of applause. And then you got, Alexstrasza, the most beautiful player. Let's go. And we finally get to Neltharion. It's like, and you, participation, yay! I mean, wouldn't you feel a little bit like, oh, thanks, Tyr?
The Titan Keeper Tyr looking down, and he's like, and picks up a rock. Here you go. You're in charge of this. What? The Earth. Yeah, the whole planet. He's just making up as he goes.
He was originally going to say, you're in charge of this rock. And he's like, that's dumb. Think of something else. The Earth!
Bigger. What's bigger than a rock? Boulder. What's bigger than a boulder?
His brain just, malfunctioned. The Earth! Congratulations, Neltharion.
You want me to watch over dirt? Yeah.
You'll be more connected to the mortals that way.
Yeah.
And then they're like, what?
What?
I mean, but
great power.
He sees himself as, because he kind of has to, in a way, see himself as more superior than his brethren to kind of go on the canon path that he does.
Yeah.
And so he's like, if we took that ego out of him and made him more humble, then I could see him leaning on his fellow dragons for support. And
finally talking.
Right, and being like, guys, I'm the Earth Warder, and I'm hearing these crazy whispers. It's like insane. They're telling me to do things that I don't want to do. Like replay Shadowlands, and they go.
They keep talking about this thing called an hour of twilight. I don't know what it is, but they say I am it.
And Norris Domba goes, I've seen that. That's bad. Let's prevent that.
Let's prevent that. So they give him help. They fix him up. He decides to build up more defenses because now he's heard about the hour of twilight. The coming of the old gods out of their vaults that the Titans hid them away in. And I don't think that we would see that much from Neltharion. By the way, guys, we will get it wrong.
We are going to butcher his name, and you guys just have to kind of accept that because otherwise we call him Deathwing the entire time, and that's just going to get confused.
You just mean Deathwing. Yeah. We don't mean his kid, the one that you kill, okay? We're talking about him, Deathwing. Anyway, we don't really see him, and there is a little bit of lore where he's around King Tyrannus Menethil the Third.
Yeah.
It's time to rewrite history. But first, to the billing department.
Traveling through Elwyn Forest again, looking around at all the bandits and wolves, maybe a murloc or two. Do you have those midnight Azeroth cravens that hit like a world boss? Maddie Mace has you covered. Hearthstone on cooldown, mana running low, or maybe you just sat down in the middle of a solo delve to catch your breath. A chocolate chip cookie from Maddie Mae's Bakery will help take care of those sweet, delightful cravings. It's like getting that flying mount for the first time again, soaring up to the top of Ice Crown Citadel. That sugary rush of sweet cookie goodness helps you create the same satisfaction over and over again. In packs of 6 or 12, you can cure that sweet Azeroth craving without the needing to leave the comfort of your own dungeon. Just visit MaddieMaeSweets.com and place your order today.
Now let's get back into it.
Yeah, the third.
Arthas's dad, but we're not going to worry about that. We will also say that the Black Dragonflight, because they are also a part of the Earth Warder community, they still hear whispers. They do get infected by the Titan whispers, so we don't have to worry about Onyxia or actual Neltharion, whichever one we kill. They still churn crazy. We still have to defeat them. But I feel like a lot of those Black Dragonflight members, Deathwing would try to stop them from hearing the whispers. He'd give them a nice cleansing program of meditation and Buddhism.
Well, he'd also, as the aspect, he's more stubborn than the rest of them. But at the same time, a lot of them, we go to him for advice. Like, you've dealt with this before. You've seen this. What do I do? And some would listen and some wouldn't. Because the Black Dragonflight, I don't know if you guys know this, are very stubborn people.
Oh, they're so
angry. They're so stubborn. Why so angry?
I wonder where they get it from.
Yeah, exactly. Neltharion like, oh, this is why. We talked about being a parent. Like, that's true parenthood. Neltharion needs to go watch that episode and be like, oh, this is how you be a parent.
That sounds like a good idea. I should try. As you put down, you hear the scribbles.
Yes, but nothing, to me, Neltharion would still be an inventor. He would still have all that knowledge, but he would try to use it for good. And one of the things is the dragon, or the demon soul, dragon soul, whatever you want to call it. I call it the golden dinner plate.
The golden dinner plate is delicious.
And I think that joke originated from Nixium, I believe. I might have to double check that, but it started out that's why we kind of call Thrall the Green Jesus and the Golden Dinner Plate. So if you hear,
No, that definitely did come.
that did, yeah. But the Dragon Soul was created to help it with the Well of Eternity.
So when the Titans came, they noticed an old god, ripped him out. There was a big scar. They healed it with arcane energies. They created the Well of Eternity. And some trolls stopped by and became elves from that point. The elves were whispered to by demons to try and summon Sargeras through the well.
Have you ever thought about, really quick, I don't want to go too big on a tangent, but have you ever thought about, like, how weird Azeroth's, like, paint, like, history is with, like, night elves who do, like, Ancestry.com? They're like, all right, let's look this up. And it's like, what?
Wait, it says here I was a troll?
What do you mean? The parents are like, ignore that, sweetie. You're not a troll. And he's like,
I was this disgusting.
because, you know, elves are so high up their own butts that they can't realize, you know, where they came from. But anyway, I
remember who you are, a troll.
Remember who you are. And up in the sky is just a troll going, give me a thumbs up. Like, good job. Anyway, continue on.
Good job, son. So the old gods whispered to Deathwing to create the golden dinner plate to stop Sargeras from coming through the Well of Eternity as a giant portal. He creates it, but it's infused with old god demonic energy, and he asks the aspects to put some of their aspectral power into it, and he uses it against the portal, but then he starts using it against his fellow aspects, tearing him apart, and he flies away and licks his band-aids. But what would happen this time around?
Well, this time I feel like he would do it as more of a hero move. And because in the original story, he was using the dinner plate as a way to gain their trust and then use it against them. But in this scenario, instead of using it against them, he would infuse some of his own power and use it against them. Now, the thing is that he would still be torn apart. He would still, because maybe he wouldn't imbue, because if he imbues his own power, then he wouldn't be able to use it, right?
No, yeah. If he did it, then he wouldn't be.
Okay, so maybe he doesn't do it, so that way he can use it and help out his fellow teammates.
I'm sacrificing myself.
I'm sacrificing my body in order to help out my fellow dragons. And the dragons go, oh my gosh, Neltharion, you're so cool. And he goes, I know.
You're so awesome. And he's just like, thank you.
Validation.
I am the world's greatest war general, and I will save you all. Okay, you can turn it down a bit. What?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But yeah, so he still gets his body torn apart, but instead of going and licking his wounds and healing slowly, now he has Ysera and Alexstrazia's help, who kind of give him a hand and help him heal from it, instead of him going by himself into the Maelstrom?
What would become the Maelstrom. I think he just ran away to a cave, and then when the Maelstrom opened up, he went down there. Or if there was just another portal location for him to get into Deepholm, that's where he got the plates added to his body. But this would be a very interesting look to see his still scarred up body, but just like healed. It'd be very interesting to see how they would turn that.
Right, because I would want to see a scenario where Neltharion is actually helping us and aiding us. Now, he doesn't, again, he's badly injured because it's taken a lot out of him. So he want to be present, kind of like in the real canon story, he's healing. He is biding his time until he is fully healed and trying to contain the whispers inside his head.
He's kind of in the background. We might see notes of him popping up in vanilla BC Wrath quests by saying, some of my kids are insane, go stop them, and then we have to go kill the Nixie or something like that.
Right. So
I could see something like
I
that.
could too. And he would still be able to invent his, because he's still a genius. He's still,
Oh yeah.
so not that wouldn't change, but it'd be very interesting to see his inventions pop up every once in a while. I mean, he's like a mad scientist, you know?
But in a
In a good way. So we're still like, are you sure about this? He's like, absolutely.
Absolutely. Watch this.
Watch this. And then it blows up.
Blows up the mountain. It wasn't supposed to happen.
And we're like, okay. But yeah, so we actually get to like see more, and we had the added benefit of getting to know him a little more in Dragonflight, which is a shame because it would have been cool in Cataclysm to see kind of give the full history of Neltharion instead of kind of sidetracking it to Garrosh and trying to make all that storyline work. But that's for our rewrite of Cataclysm, which we are working on.
That will soon come out. But now the real question: if we're changing so much about him, what would we do for Cataclysm? What about that expansion? Would we just get rid of it completely? Absolutely not.
No. Cataclysm would still occur, but now we need a new focus. And you're like, Dryan. So you're saying that Garrosh would become the main focus of Cataclysm? No, that wouldn't make any sense.
That's disgusting.
Garrosh is still being used. He's going to still be in Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor, which I know I said the bad word to a lot of people. But instead, consider this. Who is a black dragon, has a massive ego, and likes blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. What happens if Wrathion was instead the one to become insane? Thank you.
Dun, dun,
Thank you
dun.
for the gasping. I really appreciate it. But
Anytime.
seriously, what happens if Wrathion was the one to become not Deathwing, but kind of like him?
The one that brings on the Hour of Twilight. So when the orcs come through the portal, Cho'Gall still gets the visions by staying next to Silithus and still sees the Hour of Twilight. And Deathwing and Nozdormu, they still hear about the Hour of Twilight. So someone's got to bring on the Hour of Twilight. Who better than a stucky up teenager dragon that was just hatched in the very beginning of the expansion, taken by cultists and raised to become the one that brings on the Hour of Twilight. He's very manipulative. He's very sneaky. He's very crazy. But this time around, instead of being fully cleansed by the void whispers, he actually accepts them, / the cultists might do a little bit of magic on him so that he can fully embrace the whispers.
Right, because in the original lore, he was actually the only survivor of a clutch of eggs that Deathwing had heard about, went to go destroy them. And in Cataclysm, we actually get to go help save those clutch of eggs, but we only end up saving one, who is named Wrathion.
Oh, look at the little guy.
He's so cute. Horribly manipulative, but so cute. Now, but in our rewrite, or in our what if, he wouldn't be the only dragon to survive that clutch of eggs. So instead, he's got a whole herd of siblings to compete with. And a really quick side note, I realized that technically Deathwing is not his dad. Deathwing is his grandfather. But I'm going to just say that it's his dad to avoid confusion, because we can, and it's my show, and I can say what I want. But seriously, it helps confusion, because otherwise people get confused. Like, what do you mean grandfather / uncle / dad? Just easier. Anyway, we help save the clutch of eggs, unfortunately at the loss of the dragon's life. But in this rewrite, the dragon gets to live and gets to raise Deathwing or Rathian and his siblings. But Rathian is still Rathian. He has his own agendas. He is very manipulative, tactical, thank you. And he does what he wants. He knows what he wants, and he will do anything.
And he's greedy.
Extremely.
And power hungry. It's Rathian we're talking
He's maybe uncorrupted, but gosh dang it, he is still Bran. But so he gets jealous of this power and becomes power hungry. And he thinks to himself, what can I do to stand out, to really become what my father couldn't? And guess who saunters in? That's right, cultists.
He says, I want to gain more power. And guess what? The old gods say, power you say, power I have for you.
And of course, this intrigues Rathian because he is insane and goes, tell me more. And they show him the hour of twilight. And Angelite, what do you think about this? Because we were thinking about if the elemental gods would still come into the picture since Deathwing is no longer here.
I still think a lot of what happened in Cataclysm would still happen. So during the Black Empire, when the old gods reigned over Azeroth before the Titans showed up, the elemental lords were outside of... They didn't have prisons at the time. They were just free reigning. Ragnaros, the Fire Lord, and the Wind Lord, whatever his name is, were sided with old gods and were fighting against the Earth Mother, whatever her real name is, and Neptulon, the Water Lord. And I feel like we would still have the same quest where we're trying to save Neptulon, helping the Earth Mother, stopping Ragnaros, and stopping Akaka.
Right, but if Deathwing never became insane, then the Earth wouldn't have been destroyed. Because Deathwing wouldn't be Deathwing, he'd be Neltharion, and Rathian would be too small of a dragon to do all that damage. So,
well, this is what I think.
Okay.
I think that he uses the cultists of the Twilight to get into Deepholm and destroy the world pillar there. Because when Deathwing was rampaging / getting repaired done to his body, he was causing all these mass problems. But one of the real reasons for the destruction of the planet was that the world pillar was destroyed, which kind of holds the elemental plane of Earth from Deepholm to the planet Azeroth itself, and it gets destroyed, causes all these problems. So if Rathian can just get down there, cause some destruction to the world pillar with the cultists, everything else would just play out as normally and still have all those problems with the planet.
Right. Deathwing would also, or not Deathwing. Well, Deathwing still is the one who escaped the Maelstrom and did all that damage to the world. So I think what would happen is exactly what you said, right? Except, what if, this is kind of fun, what happens if Ragnaros was the one who came out of the Firelands raid and wreaked havoc, and then the elemental gods are the ones who cause the destruction of the planet.
Ooh, I like that.
Because,
like, what if Ragnaros stomped on Orgrimmar and Stormwind?
yeah, I mean, that would give them a use. Because a big complaint about Cataclysm was there wasn't a lot. I mean, Ragnaros was really cool to see, but he didn't really have a lot of use during it. They didn't know what to do with him.
He was really trapped in his place.
Exactly. So what
In the
happens if he uses those new legs he has and causes the chaos that Deathwing did? But now so we can still have the destruction of the world and a use for the elemental gods.
I like that.
I think it'd be really cool because then we could see them causing chaos around the world, and then we chase Ragnaros and can you say his name again for me?
The Wind God? I do not want to... Mr. AK.
But we chase them back to their respective raids, and then we get them. Instead of them being taking a backseat and just sitting in their raid, twiddling their thumbs till we realize they're there. We actually have a purpose for the raids, and we could chase them back into their raids and get them. And then we're like, we did it, Patrick. The day is saved.
And then Rathian pops back up.
Yes, but we actually see conversations with Rathian and Ragnaros. Maybe we catch them at a bad time and we have a mini boss fight, and then that's when we harm Ragnaros. And then Rathian is like, you will not ruin my plans. And he shakes his fist at us and he's like, you will not interfere with my plans, you meddling kids. And we're like, we're older than you.
Not by dragon years. We still are.
We still are. You're like a baby. Dragons are weird. Anyway, go ahead.
And then as we run around and do all this stuff, I feel like the main person to lead us on where to go would be the main protector of the planet himself, Neltharion. I feel like he would come out of his bandages and say, hey, what is going on with my planet? I can sense a lot of stuff is going on right now. And he would be like Magni during Legion, where he helps us go through the portal networks and goes to those key locations to stop the elemental lords and catch up to this gosh darn kid that's causing all this problem.
Right. But here's the thing about Neltharion. I have a feeling that he, despite our rewrite, he still would not survive Cataclysm.
He needs to
die.
Is what you're
but the reason I'm saying that is because then if we had him live throughout Dragonflight, it would kind of take a different meaning to having him alive and picking out a new Earth Warder, which would eventually be his son Ebenessen. And so we have that sweet sentiment that he has, but I just don't see him surviving because I have a feeling Rathian would pull an Arthas. And
be like, what are you doing, my son?
Yeah, I kept not exact word for word because, you
can't copy your past characters. That's way
too obvious. But I'm serious. It's a way for us to kind of reintroduce these characters and bring them into the story, but not be confused about where all of a sudden they came from. We would see Rathian hatch maybe at the end of Wrath of the Lich King instead, and then we'd be like, oh, baby, cool. And then he grows up, and we start to realize, oh no, this is one rotten egg. But then he starts to grow up and he becomes his manipulative little self. And all of a sudden, we're just like, oh no. Because what happens if you don't learn from your history? You're doomed to repeat it.
It would be very interesting to see the whole betrayal against his own father right before we enter the final raid to kill Rathian.
Right.
Yes, Rathian has to die. What a shame. No one cares.
Well, with Rathian, and I know a lot of people are hoping to see more of Rathian, but even Blizzard themselves kind of put him on the back burner with Dragonflight. They did this whole quest line where we had to either give support to him or Sibelian, another one of Rathian's or Deathwing's children. And he was in Outlands for a long time. And then he comes back to the Dragon Isles because we need a new Earth Warder. Well, so they fight for a long time. And then they both realize, like, after I took so long to build up reputation with those two. Only to find out that it didn't matter. We don't get to pick who the Earth Warder becomes. Instead, it was freaking Evanescence, who makes the most sense, but we still didn't have to build reputation with him. So yeah, that was
and if you guys are wondering, what about Nyalotha? What about all that stuff that Rathian was in charge of? We'll just give that to Abyssian, or not Abyssian, Sibelian.
Well, again, and I mean that kind of messes with the flow of Pandaria, because Rathian was also a huge story part in that. But we're gonna kind of, again, not till we get to Pandaria, if we stick with this, then we'll kind of explain where that goes and how that would all work out. But that's how I feel. I think it'd make for a more interesting Cataclysm. It would still include all the parts that would be missing that a lot of people had issues with during Cataclysm. Like, what about the elemental gods? They just kind of took a back seat to it. This would get them more involved. We could see more of them and feel their anger and wrath, and it'd make more sense.
If you were a quester, you actually got to see them instead of, oh, you have to go into the raid to go see these
Right,
guys.
because not everybody raids in World of Warcraft. I raid sometimes, and even that I do LFR. Still, it's like, oh, cool, but and maybe some people see it as like a reward. They're like, oh, I actually get to see the boss. That's cool, but if not everybody raids and not everybody sees the boss, and if you're just a player who wants to explore and get to know the characters more, it kind of sucks.
Well, I think that's what would have happened if if Neltharion never was whispered to by the old gods.
Exactly.
Dry, how do you feel about
I
that?
feel really good. I feel like it's a good episode, and I'm excited to see what you guys have to say and what you think about our story. Do you want to leave a comment down below? Well, it's free. So if you guys have any ideas or any suggestions, please leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more Warcraft Rewrite, please subscribe to our Patreon or just give a like on this video. And thank you. I've been Dryan. He's Angle Eye. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.